Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Love, and I'm the Program Monitoring Specialist for the Global LISA 2020 Network. I'm talking to you today from Athens, Georgia in the United States, and I want to start just by saying how happy and excited I am to be able to talk to all of you at Obafemi Awolowo University in Ile-Ife. Thank you especially to Professor Albert Abagunde for inviting me to speak with all of you. I'm very sorry that I was not able to talk with you live today, but I hope that this talk will help you understand the work of the LISA 2020 network. I especially hope that you'll gain an understanding of how the network benefits from students' participation in LISA activities and how students benefit from participating in the network's activities. We'll start by talking about the LISA 2020 network itself and what its purpose is. We'll then talk about the activities conducted by LISA Stat Labs individually, and we will end by talking about student participation in LISA 2020 activities and why it's so important to the network, as well as how students benefit from participation in LISA 2020. So let's go ahead and talk about the LISA 2020 network. This network is a global network of stat labs, and I'll talk more about individual stat labs later, which currently has 33 full member labs, many of which are in Nigeria and other locations in Africa, as you can see from this map. And I also have the web address for LISA 2020 here. I'll have it again at the end of the talk for you, but there's more information about the individual stat labs as well as what LISA does on that web page. Stat labs have a very important role to play in development and capacity building. There's sometimes the perception now that in order to make decisions or create new knowledge, you simply need to produce or collect data, which is where data producers come into the picture. And then someone has to review the data and use that to make a decision. So we have also data decision makers. It's important, though, that data analyzers be introduced to this paradigm. So that's people with special skills to understand the important nuances about data and how to appropriately identify relationships within data. So this could be a well-trained statistician. In order for this to be effective, though, these data analyzers have to be skilled collaborators as well as skilled methodologists and analysts. So in other words, statisticians have to have the skill to do these things. They have to be able to interact with data producers and data decision makers and help make a conduit between all of these different people, in addition to the skills needed to analyze and interpret data. They need to be able to understand the data and projects they're working with on both a deep and broad level, and be able to communicate the results of statistical methods and analytical work in ways that provide actionable evidence. So the purpose of the LISA 2020 network is to create stat labs that can do all of these things. So this is where stat labs come in. They're not just data analyzers, but they also help these individual actors come together to be able to make good policy decisions and good other decisions that we need. So let's talk a little bit more about the purpose of the network, and then we'll talk more about what individual stat labs do. When you have a network or a group of stat labs, that facilitates growth and capacity of each individual stat lab because we can all learn from each other. It enables connections across labs so that they can share their progress with each other and even have international collaborations. For example, we have one collaboration right now involving stat labs in both India and Africa researching green energy initiatives. Finally, a network like the LISA 2020 network is a united organization that can provide name recognition so that we can attract more support and be welcomed in more new areas and universities. I'm going to move on to talking about specific stat lab activities, but before we do that, let's talk more about what a stat lab is. Right? So an individual stat lab, well, I have an old habit of thinking of a lab as a room full of equipment, but that's really an old way of thinking. A stat lab is not a room full of computers, but it's a team of data experts. It's people. A stat lab focuses on training students, faculty, and staff to become effective interdisciplinary researchers who also have technical skills. A stat lab reaches out to domain experts to promote awareness of statistics and data science. So who are domain experts? Domain experts are the local community of researchers, business leaders, government agencies, and non-governmental organizations. People who have knowledge in a particular domain. Okay. A stat lab also provides a space where statisticians and domain experts collaborate. It doesn't have to be a physical space, although that's helpful, but it should be an intellectual space where these people can come together. Finally, a stat lab is an engine for development. So as the labs continue to reach out and work with domain experts, the awareness of the stat lab and the true usefulness of statistics spreads. The community makes more requests for assistance, then the lab becomes even more capable as their resources and experience continue to grow. Then the domain experts become more capable as a result of interactions with the lab, and this cycle continues. Now that we've discussed what a stat lab is, there are 3 primary activities that LISA 2020 networks participate in. So those are training, education, and collaboration. I'll go over these in more detail in the following slides, but as an overview, stat labs train statisticians to have a collaborative, evidence-to-action mindset. They teach researchers, business professionals, and development policy actors, so the domain experts we've already talked about, to become more capable with using data and more aware of the power of statistical analysis to inform decisions. Finally, they provide that collaborative space that we've already talked about for statisticians and data scientists to work with domain experts to create data-driven innovation and solutions that lead to widespread development impacts and outcomes. Let's look at each of these activities in more detail individually. So training refers to training students and staff as needed in data-related disciplines, such as statistics and data science, to become collaborators. Although training in general statistical theory or technical methods and programming could be part of this, the focus of the labs is training those who already have these skills to collaborate with others. Although methods of training can vary from one stat lab to another, these are some common methods that are used throughout the network. So these include attending collaboration-focused university courses, attending special collaboration training sessions, participating in video coaching and feedback. So this is when you actually film yourself participating in a collaboration and then review that video critically to see how you can improve. Taking part in collaborative activities or stat lab projects, or attending stat lab meetings about collaborative activities. Next is education. Education refers to teaching statistics and data science, including concepts, methods, and just greater data literacy to non-statisticians. So this is the domain experts, again, that we've discussed. The LISA 2020 network does this through short courses and workshops. The topics can include software, specific statistics or data science methods that may be common or used across the board, maybe specialized methods that are used in particular fields, and there's many, many topics that could fit into this education paradigm. It's basically whatever your specific group of domain experts requires from you. Finally, there's collaboration, and this refers to working with domain experts, researchers, business people, policymakers, others with non-statistical expertise to help answer questions with data. So there are many forms that collaboration can take as well. For example, that could be long or short-term collaborations, maybe with just one meeting or with many meetings. Collaboration can take place in person or online. It may or may not involve funding. It's always nice when you get funding, but you don't have to be funded in order to be considered to be collaborating. It may or may not result in publications, and it could result in analyses and detailed reports that you might provide for your domain expert, or it could just be simple advice. So collaboration is really any time that you work with somebody who doesn't have the statistical or data knowledge that you do, and you help them to answer a question or gain a better understanding. I'm going to end by talking about students and LISA 2020. Students are extremely important to the LISA 2020 network. Training students to be collaborators is vital to the outcomes and to the future of LISA 2020. Additionally, participating in LISA collaborative activities through local stat lab is also very beneficial for students. Basically, it's good for both students and the network when students participate in LISA activities. So why are students important to the network? I'm sure you've all heard this idea many times before, but I'm going to reiterate that students really are the future. In our case, students are the next generation of collaborative statisticians. This view of stat labs that I've been talking about, especially the idea of a network of stat labs that produces all of the positive things we've discussed, is new. Eric Vance and I just had an article accepted in Chance magazine where we present this as a new model for building statistics and data science capacity. This idea did not exist when I was a university student 20 years ago. It has the potential to greatly accelerate capacity building and data-driven innovations in policy, and people who are students now are going to be powering this process very soon. Okay. Secondly, students who are in school now are going to be filling all of the vital roles in society that produce impactful outcomes. Having both data skills and the ability to collaborate with decision makers and data producers is going to be extremely important. Finally, as others in society see the outcomes that can result from quality data and collaborations with well-trained statisticians, the value of statistics and data science and data itself will greatly increase in society. You can see that students are extremely important to the whole concept of the network. What do students gain from participating in LISA collaborations? First, students gain real-world collaborative experience. You can learn many ideas on how to execute statistical analysis through taking classes, but as you probably already realize, this is not the same as actually applying these methods in real situations where you're trying to answer a research question or a business question or a policy question. That experience will make you much more valuable as a future employee. Next, our labs invest in physical resources and training for students, so you'll gain extra skills that you wouldn't through simply taking courses. Many of our labs have connections with industry and government. Some of them are able to provide students with special training that makes them more eligible for internship opportunities. We've already seen this in some of our labs, as well as make connections for employment after graduation. Finally, we have a LISA 2020 certificate coming soon. It's under development. So we are in the process of creating a LISA 2020 certificate program to reward and incentivize students for participating in stat lab activities. We are currently determining minimum requirements for this certificate, which will have 3 components. That's collaboration skills, technical skills, and collaboration experience. The certificate will be jointly issued by the LISA 2020 network and the local university, and there will be both local and international requirements. Our goal is for this to become a recognized certification that conveys both skills and experience to employers and future collaborators. So, by participating in lab activities and meeting certain requirements, you could earn an additional certificate that shows your achievements. Those are just some of the possible benefits for students to work with a LISA Stat Lab. That's everything I have for you today, and I hope it found it interesting and that you're inspired to learn more about LISA at OAU. I'm sure that Professor Abugundi will be happy to answer any of your questions, but here's some additional information for you in case you're interested. I do have a link to the LISA 2020 website again. I also have the general LISA 2020 email address. You can email this with any general questions you have, any information you'd like about LISA. Finally, I've also included my email in case you'd like to reach out to me. Again, I'm the Program Monitoring Specialist for LISA 2020. It's been great to talk with all of you. I hope you all are enjoying your workshop. Thank you again for inviting me to speak with you, and I hope I have the opportunity to do so again in the future. Goodbye, everyone.